Did you ever ask yourself the question, when will I be able to write code on my own? Like, I'm working with a lot of learners right now who are just starting to learn how to program, and they tell me this a lot. Like there's others that can just sit down and write code on their own, like right from the beginning, right? Like they don't even have to plan anything on their computer or on their piece of paper before they start programming. Like, and I sit here and have to plan out everything like days in advance. Like, why can't I do the same thing? And like, what does it take? What does it take for me to get there? And I asked myself the same question when I started with programming, and I found it really frustrating that, I don't know, like it took me ages to figure out like programming problems that from today's point of view seem simple, but back then was like a mountain to climb. And in the end, as with almost anything, like it takes time and practice. But why is that, right? And like I've been wondering what happens behind the scenes, if you will. And so I went ahead and learned a bit more about what happens in our heads when we learn how to program. And the things I'm about to show you, I didn't come up with them. Like I only read about it. And most of the theories and like knowledge I got from a German author, Vera Birkenbiel, who put in a lot of work to figure out what's happening in our brains when we're learning and like how we can do learning in a more brain-friendly way. So let's see. It takes time to build a skill. That's something you might have heard before, right? And we all heard this, but why does it take time, right? Especially like doing actual skills like driving, baking, carpenting, programming, but also you might have encountered something similar when you've been reading about a new topic, right? Like math, history, etc. Any other science topic. Like the first time you read about the new topic, then you will see, like I don't understand anything, and like then the next day you will see, I don't remember anything from this. And the reason for that is that your brain for abstract knowledge works like a net. Like when there's new knowledge coming in, there has to be a net that catches and holds that new knowledge, so it doesn't fall through and like we forget about it immediately. And when we learn about a brand new topic, like programming, for instance, we've never heard about it before or like about the details, then what happens is all this new knowledge just falls through. And it takes repetition and like some time for a net to build, and it initially will be very coarse-grained, so there's a lot of stuff that's falling through. But over time, your programming knowledge will become more dense, so that like when new things come in, that like you will have the feeling of like, oh yeah, like that doesn't make sense to me, and like it's not too much effort anymore to add to your knowledge compared to the first few days. And for programming, there's two things that come in there. Like one is knowledge, learning about programming language features, design patterns, computer science theory, etc. But there's also skill, and what we're going to look at is how both of them play together and like how they develop over time. Because what we see is that abstract knowledge and programming knowledge counts into that as well, like design patterns or computer science theory, all these kind of things that count into that. this grows over time in an exponential way. This means initially what we see is like it might take 2 months, like your mileage might vary in this case. But let's say it takes 2 months to build foundations. That is learning about how does the programming workflow look like, what tools do I need, what language fundamentals are there, like loops, conditionals, etc. And all of this might take 2 months for you to learn and really remember and understand. And then the next things come in, like object-oriented programming, functional programming, etc. And this might just take 2 hours for you to take in and understand. And that's the interesting and fascinating thing about exponential curves, that it's like the deeper you get in there, the faster and the more you will learn. And it's just the initial time, or like the initial part here that takes time. It might take you a month, 2 or 3 even, to really get in there before you can build on that. And the next thing there is programming skill. And skill is really like anything about writing code. And initially you might find that when you read it, like either your own code or examples or somebody else's code you find on the internet, like, oh yeah, like I understand on a conceptual level what's going on here. And you see that this is not an exponential curve, but more like stairs, and they happen step by step. And in the first step, you might just understand code concepts. And then at some point in time, you do make the jump to the next level. And then this next level, now you start writing code based on a tutorial, and all of this makes sense and it checks out. And after some more time, you change existing code to adapt it to a use case you might have. And then after some more time, you write your first own code and write your first applications all by yourself without any tutorial blueprint, if you will. And during these times, whenever you reach a new level, you might feel like, oh, I'm plateauing and I'm not making any progress. But what's actually happening behind the scenes is whenever you are on one of these plateaus, is that your brain puts on puts itself into construction mode and converts the neural pathways that make up that connect all your neurons in your brain that store information or help you remember things, and converts these pathways from trails to a proper road to eventually a highway, so that information can travel faster and more efficiently and more at a time. And the thing is, the thing with this here is, with any construction in the real world, on like street construction, this takes time, this causes delays. But afterwards, once construction is done, the road is much smoother and we travel faster and more comfortably. And that's the reason why whenever you feel you're plateauing in your journey and your learning experience, you have to keep going to support this process, in your brain, right? Like to help, to help it move things forward. And all of this is, takes time. Like we're talking about months and even years, but you will see that even after a year already, there's a lot of things you've already learned. And the more you practice, like the more days in a week, the better, and like the faster you will get there. And all of us went through there, and some of us maybe a bit faster, others took a bit more time, but it's all normal. Oops. if you like this content, I would really appreciate if you give me feedback on Instagram and also follow me there. My account is 21 Lessons. And you can also find more of this content on 21lessons.com. That's my website.